So good morning, students. We'll start unit number 4 in continuation with unit number 4, which is design of plate girders. The first one is introduction. So, a flexural member, as we know, it is designed usually for bending and occasionally it is used for shear. So, when spans are large, and the loads are heavy, even an I-section type flexural member with cover plates are insufficient to support the anticipated loads. So in such a case, any of the following alternatives may be provided. The alternatives are two or more I-sections connected appropriately, plate girders and truss girders. So of the above alternatives, the first one, which is two or more I-sections connected appropriately, it is usually uneconomical. Therefore, the choice lies between a plate girder and a truss girder only, that is number 2 and number 3. So plate girders have a moment resisting capacity between roll dissections and truss girders, and plate girders can be built to any desired proportion to suit the particular requirements and of a cross section with exactly the properties that is been needed. And the disadvantages of this type of girders, that is truss girders, are higher cost of fabrication and erection. Disadvantages of truss girders are higher cost of fabrication and erection, problem of vibration and impact, requirements of higher vertical clearance, and costly maintenance. For light loads and short spans, that is like less than 10 meter, plate girders are uneconomical. It is because due to the increase in the connection cost, enrolled I sections are preferred. So, plate girders, they are usually built of flexural members, and some of the typical plate girder sections are shown below in figure 12.1. So their bending resistance, it can be increased. How? By increasing the distance between the flanges. This in turn also increases the shear resistance as the web area increases. So plate girders are primarily provided where in bridges, not only in bridges but are also in very common in buildings that are heavily where heavy concentrated loads are there, that is from heavy concentrated loads that prevails from upper story columns, etc., and it acts along a long span beam also. For example, a dining hall floor beam of a restaurant requiring a clear space all through. So at the first instance, a plate girder is usually thought as a flexural member at first, but whose cross-section is composed of plate elements, which is true, of course, but it is only in the case of welded plate girders. So before the widespread use of welding, connecting the components of the cross-section, it was a major consideration in the design of plate girders. So all of the connections were made by riveting or bolting, and so there was no way to attach the flange directly to the web. And additional cross-sectional elements were introduced for the specific purpose of transmitting the load from one component to the other. So the usual technique was to use a pair of angles that was placed back to back on either side of the web flange, so to attach the flange to the web. Here in this plate girder, you can see web plate flange angles, flange cover plates, and plate girder arrangements. Next, riveted or bolted plate girders, they are economically used in between of 50 meter to 30 meter span, whereas the welded plate girders may be used up to 100 meter of span. That is, though a truss girder may be more economical for large spans. So a welded plate girder is economical as compared when compared to riveted or bolted plate girder. Reason being that of the considerable reduction in its self-weight. So it should be evident that a welded plate girder is far more superior to the riveted or bolted girder, and this in terms of simplicity and efficiency. The normal practice nowadays is to use welded plate girders because of the advancements in welding techniques. Also, the designer, if so, feels more free to proportion the welded plate girders, how with varying depths and proceed and produce tapered and haunch girders, which is shown in again figure 12.2. Only if the situation demands. So considering this, the emphasis in this chapter we will be more on the discussions and design of welded plate girders. And principles and specifications are same for bolted plate girders, and if bolted plate girder is provided, then only non-slip bolts should be used. Figure 12.2 is a continuous welded plate girder with haunch at the intermediate support, tapered with fab and flangers and having traverse stiffeners. The design of a plate girder is essentially an exercise in ordinary beam design. That is the proportioning of a member with a section modulus adequate to resist the bending, and a web that is capable of resisting shear in the normal fashion and sufficient stiffness. The only difference remains between it is that the design of a roll beam, since the designer has greater control over the dimensions of the section, and this will make the web thinner in proportion to its depth than in any of the other roll shapes or web buckling that may be of the great concern. So the designer, that is the engineer, has to make the choice of either making the web flange thick enough by itself to avoid buckling, that premature buckling, and this often defeats the purpose of plate girder construction if premature buckling occurs, or like placing intermediate stiffeners along its length and thus by dividing it into smaller panels and reducing the plate span, increasing the web buckling resistance. Next is the type of section. So several possible plate girder arrangements are shown in the figure 12.1. When the loads and the span are large, plate girder sections either with riveted or bolted connections or welded connections, it may be provided. So the number of flange plates can be increased depending upon the moment to be resisted. So if the depth is limited and the loads are too large, a welded box plate girder is provided, that was shown in figure 12.1d, earlier figure. So a box plate girder with riveted or bolted connections can also be made, but it is very costly as compared to the welded one. So box girders have the advantage of great resistance to lateral buckling and torsion. Next up is the elements of plate girders. So the various elements of a riveted or bolted plate girders are depicted in figure 12.3. Figure 12.3 bolted plate girders. So these elements are web plate, flange angles, with or without flange cover plates for riveted or bolted girders, and only flange plates for welded plate girders. Stiffeners, that is bearing, transverse and longitudinal in shape splices for web and flange. So in the following articles, the analysis and design for each element of a plate girders is dealt with separate. And then an overall design procedure is also developed. So special problem of shear buckling a web and local buckling of the flange is also addressed in such situations. So bolted plate girders having longitudinal stiffener, transverse stiffener, web plates, flange cover plates, flange angles, web plates and back together, also bearing stiffener. Then next is welded plate girders having load carrying stiffeners, intermediate transverse stiffeners, bearing stiffeners, web plate, flange plate, and concentrated load. Next, general consideration. So structural steel design, it is largely a matter for providing of stability either locally or in an overall sense, and many standard hot roll structure shapes are so proportioned that local stability problems are eliminated or minimized. So when a plate girder is used, however, the designer or the engineer must account for factors in many cases would not be a problem with a hot roll shape. So most of the flexural strength in plate girders is furnished by flanges. So the limit states considered are yielding of tension flange and buckling of compression flange, that is in the form of vertical buckling into the web or flange local buckling. Flange buckling can also be caused due to lateral torsional buckling. Since the flange provides most of the flexural strength, most of the steel must be concentrated in flanges and as far as possible away from the neutral axis of the girder, which consequently or reluctantly results in deep and thin web. So such slender web accounts for many of the special problems associated with plate girders, and this includes local instability. The thin webs have a possibility of buckling before yielding, and the three principal types of buckling that are to be considered are shear or diagonal buckling, bending or longitudinal buckling, and bearing or vertical buckling. A thorough understanding of the basis is provided in IS 800 provisions for the plate girders, and it requires a background in stability theory, particularly plate stability. So such a treatment is beyond the scope of this book, and however, the emphasis in this chapter is only on the qualitative basis of the specification and requirements and also their application. So at locations having high shear in a girder web, which is usually located near the support or near the neutral axis, the principal planes will be inclined with respect to the longitudinal axis of the member. And the principal stresses will also be diagonally in tension and diagonally in compression. So the diagonal tension poses no particular problem, but the diagonal compression causes the web to obviously buckle. So this problem can be addressed in one of the three ways. First is the depth to thickness ratio of the web. It can be made small enough so that the problem is eliminated. Next is web stiffeners, which can be used to form panels with increased shear strength. And the last one is provisionally web stiffeners can be used to form panels that resist the diagonal compression through tension field action. So the concept of tension field action is illustrated again in figure 12.5. And at that point of impending buckling, the web loses its ability to support the diagonal compression, and this stress is shifted to the transverse stiffeners and the flanges. The transverse stiffener, it resists the entire vertical component of the diagonal compression, and the flanges its horizontal component. So the web will no need to resist only the diagonal tension, hence the term tension field action is used. So after initial buckling, a plate girder does acts much like a Pratt truss, where the vertical web members carries compression and the diagonals carry tension. And it is also able to resist additional shear. So sign the tension field does not actually exist until the web begins to buckle, and its contribution to the web shear strength will not exist until the web buckles. Hence, the total strength, it will consist of the strength prior to buckling plus the post-buckling strength that has been derived from the tension field action. So in the case of an unstiffened web, it is incapable of resisting the applied shear, which is appropriately spaced stiffeners are used. So in cross-sectional requirements for the stiffeners, these are called as intermediate stiffeners, are minimal because their primary purpose is to provide stiffness rather than resist directly the applied loads. So that's all for this lecture. I'll be sharing this note with you. You can give your attendance in the chat box. Thank you. I'll be giving the assignment to the CR to Nanu, so he will give you the assignment. And those who have done can leave the meeting, and those who have not given the attendance needs to give it now. Later, I won't entertain. Thank you.